Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is May 6th, and right now we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You may notice a different background here. We are in Hastings, Nebraska. We've been storm chasing the last 2 days. Saw some interesting structure yesterday, but we're kind of on the hunt for a photogenic tornado. That will continue today, probably some portions near Kansas City and Missouri. We'll probably be in the same location again tomorrow, but we should be out here for at least the next week or so. So you'll probably be seeing these briefings off and on from out here on the road. This is looking at Seattle yesterday. Look at that, 51 degrees only for a high, 7/10 of an inch rain. That is the rainiest single day Mayo ever at SeaTac there. So yeah, enjoy the troughing while it lasts though, because we are potentially warming up here as we go on in through next week. We'll look at that in some detail coming up here. This is looking at the National Weather Service Spokane. You can see rivers are running high. You got rock and mudslide risks out there. So watch out, that snowmelt is occurring and we are getting some heavy rain across some of the higher terrain, which we'll look at now. You can see the next 7 days, pretty good amounts across some portions of BC, Washington, Idaho, Montana. And you can see Eastern Oregon getting some good precipitation amounts too. Hopefully we can help extinguish some of that drought out there. This is the day 3. So this is Monday morning to Tuesday morning. We're going to dive a low pressure system into California and Southern Oregon. And this is going to bring some potential here back across the Pacific Northwest for some thunderstorms. Probably not as dynamic as the last round, but something worth watching here over the next couple of days. This is looking at the European model. Let me back that up a little bit here. As we go through Monday afternoon, we kind of peak and it tries to include some of the Cascades of Washington and Oregon there, and better chances as you move off to the east, eastern Washington through Idaho, eastern Oregon. This is looking at total precipitation all the way up through 53 hours. And you can see the big amounts across some of the areas of BC, Montana, Idaho Panhandle, north portions, and eastern Oregon. There is that low pressure system. You kind of see it track. I scrolled back there and I'm going forward. You can see that moving in towards the California coastline there. This is the 06 European run. This is hot off the press. Now we're looking at the wider view of things here. This is the entire Pacific Ocean. You can see Japan on the far left. There's Alaska kind of middle center. And you can see the west coast of North America on the right. So enjoy this troughing while it lasts. There goes our storm system into California and Oregon shown there. Troughing hangs on a bit here through Tuesday, but then watch that huge trough out over the Gulf of Alaska here. And this is looking up towards 18,000 feet. So upper level low there, and look at this ridge, a very robust ridge, a huge heat dome building over the Pacific Northwest. But there is some important model differences that we'll go over here in a minute. So we are, there's still uncertain just the extent of this heat wave coming up. But you can see towards next week and just this massive heat dome on the GFS. Now this is looking at the European, a little bit different view of things here. You can see Alaska up top there, and you can see the west coast go underneath the troughing there. Next storm system moves into California, Oregon here as we go on in through the day Monday again. Then troughing hangs out through Tuesday. Starts to dive down across the southwest on Wednesday. Then look at that huge trough retrograde here. And you'll see a little bit of a different ridge placement here on the European. So this would not be quite as warm. So there are important differences between some of the models here that we need to work out before we start sounding alarms on just how warm it's going to get. This is looking at the GFS. Again, this is a wide view, Japan on the left. There's Alaska middle center, and you've got the Pacific Northwest far right. And if you put this into motion, this is 850 temperatures. This is the anomaly. So you'll see that trough start to dig out across the Gulf of Alaska there, out over the Pacific Ocean. And look at how much we warm up there at 5,000 feet. We're going to get those compression winds off the higher terrain and just some very warm conditions if the GFS is correct. This is looking at 2-meter temperature anomaly. You can see we're below average here as we go through the next few days, but then we really start to warm up here as we go towards the end of next week, on into next week, and you can clearly see that heat just engulfing the entire Pacific Northwest there. But again, important model differences between the GFS and the European right now, so we have low confidence right now, but it does look like a strong ridge will build somewhere in our vicinity. Now this is looking at the thermal trough potential here. I wanted to show you this so you can see the troughing offshore there, kind of retrogrades and allows this ridge to build. And look at that thermal trough coming up the coastline. That's the signature of our heat waves here across the Pacific Northwest. You get that ridge over the top of the region and you get the sinking air, and it causes this kind of thermal trough by default. There we get those offshore winds, and we can really warm up quite rapidly here across Pacific Northwest. Now taking a look at this, take this with a grain of salt. You see that 101 temperature for Seattle there as we go on in towards mid-May. That is definitely an outlier there. But you can see that gradual warm up and then extreme warm up as we go. But look at the national blend of models here. This is probably much more realistic at this point, where we get up towards the 80-degree mark potentially as we go on in through mid-May. This is like what, May 15th and 16th shown there. So right now there's big model disagreement going on. The European has something similar with some temperatures potentially getting up towards the 80-degree mark right now. So we're kind of looking at that, but there are quite a few ensemble members in there that are showing some mid 80s for the European. So we'll watch this over the next few days and see how this trends. Again, important differences to work out. This is May 13th through 19th. You can clearly see the bullseye there across Pacific Northwest. So the National Weather Service has definitely taken notice of that. This is the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook here. This was issued yesterday. And you see that bullseye for below normal across Pacific Northwest. This was issued yesterday for the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. Look at that, May 20th through June 2nd, above average signal across the Pacific Northwest, extending all the way down across the Rocky Mountains there. And look at California, still a little bit below average there, at least to the extended, at least the forecast says. This is U.S. seasonal drought outlook. Check out that yellow across eastern Washington. That is drought development likely. So that's not good news for the state of Washington there. You can see the brown means that drought will persist in those areas. I'm hoping we get some relief here with this storm that comes through on Monday for eastern Oregon. But that drought development likely could be clipping some of the Okanagan area and the higher terrain, maybe in some of the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington. So hopefully it's not too bad there, but it does show some signs for that. But anyway, yep, out here in Nebraska, I'll be out here chasing for the next week. I'll try to do these briefings daily. If not, I may skip a day here or there. But anyway, anyway, let's look forward to this heat wave coming up here. I know a lot of people like the heat, but I know, you know how people go in the Pacific Northwest. A lot of people like the nice cool and rainy weather, which should be the case here for the next few days. Not a lot of precipitation expected for Seattle, but it should be below average for the next couple days before that heat wave finally starts to arrive here. So anyway, we'll watch this day by day. We've got some important differences to work out there in the models. And yeah, we'll do this again either tomorrow or the next day, and I will talk to you guys then.